in a very true sense, in all my practice, there's a moment, I hope, of connection and recognition of someone else. Walking past these vessels through this sort of journey here, or touching one of the inscriptions on the side of one of these great black pots, or sitting in this space I've made, this strange, huge black vessel that I've made that people can sit in here, or moving closer to one of the vitrine works that sit throughout this exhibition, and reading it, animating it, walking past it, coming back, pausing. So just as in a book, you pick a book up and you leaf through it, and then you go back to the beginning and I do, and you reread. This is an exhibition I hope that people will move through. It's not works sort of pinned to the wall and with frozen under gallery spotlights. It's an exhibition in a beautiful space where the light changes, and I hope people will come and pause and move and return. And if that happens, then it will work. The invitation to work in this extraordinary space here in Berlin, this great cavernous industrial space where all the newspapers were printed for so many decades, was provocative and challenging. It's a beautiful space. The light changes all the time. It's a place where you can move around objects and look down and see them from all kinds of angles. It's a place that really asks for people to interact with what you can make. And so what I've done is to make an exhibition called Letters Home. As you walk around this exhibition, you'll see texts, you'll see writing, you'll see references to poetry, written into porcelain, written into these huge new vessels that I've made. But you'll also, I think, and hope, hear echoes of the poets and the writers who mattered to me most. So it's an exhibition full of voices. So I'm hoping people will come and spend the time to listen in to all the voices that are present within this exhibition. So what you see here are by far the biggest vessels that I've ever made. I mean, these are vessels that are, some of them are bigger than me. They're enormous. Made of a black clay. I've been making them in Denmark with an extraordinary ceramic workshop with an extraordinary team of people there. And you can see the fire that's moved across the vessels as they've been in the kilns. You'll also see as you touch them, and I'm hoping people will actually run their hands over these vessels, you'll see the inscriptions. You'll see that I've written deeply into the clay. You might not be able to read it, but the writing has occurred. And some words you can see the word elegy repeated again and again and again, or the word breath, or you can see that I've been writing a fragment of the poetry of Paul Celan, or one of the sonnets to Orpheus from Rilke, and then, erased it, written over it, made it into a palimpsest, one bit of writing over another. So in some senses, it's that sort of feeling of overlapping voices that you can hear, but also really overlapping voices that you can almost feel, you can touch. I write as well as make, but this is the closest I've ever got in my life, ever got into my life, for my writing and my making and my writing to be one thing. It's a very exciting moment for me to make this happen. So these huge vessels, there are 9 of them, and I've called them elegies. There are 9 Duino elegies written by Rilke, these great long poems that have mattered to me all my life. I mean, since I was a teenager. Elegies are really interesting. I mean, elegies are ways of trying to connect to loss, trying personally to connect to people who matter to you, who have gone, to places, to homes, to communities that you are no longer able to be in, to exile, to that experience of crossing a border and leaving something behind, stories and families. So in that sense, elegies hold so much. The danger is being elegiac. The danger is to be sentimental or nostalgic or melancholic. That's not what real elegy is. Real elegy, I'm pointing my finger, real elegy is something hard and beautiful and real. It's acknowledging loss. So these vessels, this whole exhibition is saying loss has occurred, and this is what I have to do. I have to say this and try again, try and make something beautiful, try and make something that can stand and hold that memory and pass that on. For me, all inscriptions are silent, but I'm rather hoping that people will be walking around this exhibition muttering these poems to each other and saying them aloud and sharing them. I'm a big believer, huge believer in the passing on of poetry. To use this beautiful, black, dense clay for the first time like this is quite something. It's quite a huge moment for me. It's got enormous resonance because this is a clay that you might associate with going way back beyond porcelain to the first vessels that you find. This clay, this granular, rough clay with this density to it, feels very, very old. It feels, I suppose the word is essential. Porcelain is full of culture, full of palaces and alchemists and all kinds of stuff. This isn't. This is one person, one history, going back and back and back and back and back. There's a long line of 13 small oak vitrines on the wall. This is all so new. I mean, these are all of this is new work, profoundly new work. And these small, very intimate oak vitrines hold black porcelain vessels and text written into black tiles. You can barely read it. It's a musical series of spaces. It's one thing after another. It's a bit like a kind of a fugue. It's a kind of return and then a change and then another sort of picking up of a theme and returning to it. It's also, of course, like reading a poem and then another poem and another poem. And in fact, the whole work is called a part song. A part song is a musical term. It's also the title of one of the most extraordinarily moving long poems of the last 30 years, written by an English poet called Denise Riley. It's a poem of mourning for her son who died. And it is a profound, complex meditation about loss, about the act of losing and the act of remembering. So me making this work, I'm mapping in some kinds of ways music and also poetry. I made a space for you to come and pause. It's a place you can be in by yourself or with someone else. It's quiet and contemplative, and it's not a meditation place or a tea house or a pavilion, but it's all those things. It's a kind of me making a long-term sort of bet with myself that I can create the inside of a vessel for the first time. So, it's pretty exciting for me. I've made structures before. I made a Library of Exile, which was at the Venice Biennale, and then travelled, which was full of a library, it's full of books. I've made a pavilion for this travelling exhibition, which is on the road now with Axel Salto, this sort of meditative pavilion. This one is profoundly new for me. It's made of black poplar on the outside, very kind of austere on the outside, but inside it's burnt oak. It still smells absolutely beautiful. It's full of texture. Black oak underfoot, which creaks very slightly as you move. A wall of black oak, of texture, with some pieces of silver sort of embedded into the walls. And then you come in and you feel like you're in total darkness, but actually there is light filtering through, and as your eyes become accustomed to the shadows, you see that there's a place to sit, rather a generous place to sit, a bench, and then you might notice that high above you is a sort of, on a shelf, is a sort of 30 vessels, black porcelain vessels, just sort of resting out, almost out of sight in the shadows. So it's that feeling of that you know that something has been put aside, has been put above you, put there, and you know that it matters to me hugely, but it's held in shadows. So it's the ambiguity of the profound ambiguity of what any of this collecting actually means. Where does it sit? How do we hold it together? And what's lost? I've given it a title. In some ways, the whole poem is part of this. Structure, pavilion, house, tea house, whatever we call it, space. And it's a very beautiful poem. It's Celan. I'll read it in English. I've written it actually up on the wall. I've inscribed it into the gallery walls, and it says, in English, thread suns above the grey-black wilderness, a tree high thought tunes into light's pitch. There are still songs to be sung on the other side of mankind. There are still songs to be sung on the other side of mankind. It's just so beautiful. And that idea, a hope, a prayer, that there are still songs to be sung. For goodness sake, at this moment of such terrible pain in the world. That hope that there are still songs to be sung, is something that I need to hold on to. I need to inscribe that here and make this possible here. Celan talks about the breath turn, atom vende, about the moment of That the moment of, it's very beautiful, that the moment of pure creation is rare and difficult, but it happens between the breaths, the turn of the breath. Beautiful idea. And I suppose, actually, as I get older and older and older, decades pass, that idea of the turn of the breath, how do you recognize that moment? Seems to me a real challenge. I would love to make work. I would love to be able to make work that other people want to pause in front of. It's a very strong aspiration in my life. Make something which has enough in it that it makes you stop.